was the worst conversation you can imagine. So, while they were asleep at night, broke into their house quietly, took her from her room, and left. Woke up, boom, this child is kidnapped. She was then raped by the police officer.
What?
She was raped by her therapist. And so she was victimized over and over again by the system that was supposed to be helping her. What I have seen is bad enough. Okay?
Right.
An 11-year-old child being sold for sex is bad enough for us to get mad and say, let's fix this. There's a good chance that 1 in every 4 people watching this, that there's a child in their home that is getting abused in some way. We need to fix that. Here she was ready to be rescued. The police were there. She denied who she was because she was so scared. She was being controlled by this kidnapper.
And so how do you save this person? Because, obviously she's terrified.
Yeah.
How do you rescue that sort of victim? Paul, I'm so happy to be with you today. You have done 70 undercover rescue missions. That's mind-blowing. But how did you get there? I know you had a completely different life before that. So I'm very curious to understand the process. Walk me through the physical transformation. Here you are normally in a business suit, and you have to go on a rescue mission undercover. What do you look like?
The first year I was going in is Paul Stone. Paul Stone's this wealthy business owner, and the undercover guys were finding the traffickers saying, hey, Paul Stone's gonna pay for this party. Well, after about a year and a half, I was asked to go in deep cover in not being the rich guy, but somebody that's working for the rich guy. And in that situation, I was face to face at 2 a.m. with the most dangerous people on the planet. And I had to fit in. I had to look like one of them. I couldn't look like a target, right? And so one of the things that I did, in fact, on many of the rescue missions, is I would get henna tattoos. Right? These are ones that would last like 2 weeks. In fact, I have one that starts here on my arm. It's this dragon that comes and it wraps around my arm and it comes down and it ends here on my chest, this black dragon. And that's the tattoo that I got on the mission in Cancun. Now I did different ones on other missions, so I looked different. I had, sleeve ones, I have leg tattoos and a bunch of different things. My outfit myself, I would usually grow out my beard. In fact, at the time, I was clean shaven as I was building my businesses, right? I didn't have even this at all. So what I would do is right before any of the operations, I would stop shaving for about a week and a half. So it was starting to grow out, and I would grow out this for even 2 or 3 weeks. So it had more of a beard look. But in addition to that, my jewelry, my clothing,
right?
Like for example, I had a shirt. I had a shirt.
Yeah.
This is kind of risque, but I had a shirt that had a picture of a funny looking doctor with big glasses and a stethoscope, and it said, "I'm no gynecologist, but I'll take a look."
Oh my gosh.
Nasty, right? So I had a hat. I had a hat that said Effers upside down on the hat.
Oh
right?
My God.
I bought this silver chain, this big, fat, thick silver chain. So I'm wearing this silver chain. I've got this Effers hat upside down. This is my outfit. Even my wallet. I got this snakeskin wallet, right? That I had fake cards in there, and I had cash in there. So if it was ever taken, it doesn't have any of my own ID or my own cards anyway. right? It had my undercover name cards. I had my business card for Paul Stone or Paul Steele, whatever else. And then to really fit in, I figured what better outfits to wear than the stuff the traffickers are already wearing. So one of the reasons why I started buying hats and jewelry and stuff from the traffickers is so that I could wear it. People are like, oh, that's bad energy. You know, my light outshines all the dark energy. So yeah, I bought hats from guys selling kids. I bought chains from the guys selling kids. I bought bracelets from guys selling kids. And those I would wear on the next rescue missions. And those guys totally believed I was one of them.
Yeah,
'Cause I
you
was
fit the
wearing all
character.
that stuff.
I mean, we're laughing, but honestly, did that help you get into the character? But energetically, was that weird? Do you feel like, you know, you're taking on some of this negative vibe, or were you ever, I don't know about afraid, but were you ever nervous to kind of be crossing the line, the real
dark
you?
energy?
And that, yeah, how did that feel internally?
For Halloween a few years ago, I think I personified it the best. I went as an angel in devil's clothing. Okay, so I had pure white pants, I had a white shirt, I had angel wings and lights, bright like LED lights. It was, battery operated, so I was bright, just light, right? And then I had this black cloak. It was black enough where you couldn't see the light, and I had this evil-looking monster head type of a thing. So I was this evil-looking monster head, but even to crack it a little bit, boom, bright light, angel wings, everything else. So I was an angel in devil's clothing, and that's kind of energetically how I had to go into this space. Starting with meditation, starting operations with prayer, feeling the love of God for these children, and getting into this place of absolute light and a solid foundation on the inside. But on the outside, they couldn't see that. And I truly believe that God transfigured me in their eyes and my other operators, because these are good men. Good men with good families and honorable in every way, that we were able to be there face to face in the most evil places in the world where children are being sold.
Tell me about that first mission. What happened?
So I'm going down as Paul Hutchinson. I'm going down as myself, and I'm already dressed. I was told that I needed to land in Cartagena, Colombia, dressed like a rich businessman that was coming in town with a big ego that was going to write a check for this next hotel. And so I had my nice suit, I had my nice cufflinks, I had my nice watch, I had my Gucci bag, I had my Ray-Ban sunglasses. This was this persona. And I was supposed to have a quick layover in Bogota and then go into Cartagena and be picked up by some Navy SEALs that were there, that were my real bodyguards and my show bodyguards. Well, we get into Bogota and the plane gets delayed. And pretty soon they came over the broadcast. They said, hey, I'm sorry, but it's not going to fly out till tomorrow morning. Now, fortunately, the meeting with the traffickers wasn't till that next day, but even though I was supposed to come in as in character. And so I'm like, crap, okay, we've got to deal with this. And things got rough at the airport. I mean, we're talking almost a little riot was going on, because the customers were super mad that they had delayed this till the next morning, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm a target. At the time, I was told that you could pay somebody $25 to knock somebody off, to kill somebody
In Bogota.
in Bogota, Colombia at the time.
Oh my God.
Right? Now that number's gone up to about $200 now, but still, if in fact, as I looked into it, it was actually a couple hundred, but still, if I looked like I was worth more than $200, I was a target. I was definitely a target.
So you had to be in character as soon as you left the US.
Yeah, every single rescue mission, whoever we're supposed to be when we get there, if I'm working for whatever else, then I'm in character. My new profile and everything, because you don't know who you're going to meet on the plane that happens to be there and everything else while you're in town. So I'm like, crap, I've got to go get a taxi. I don't have any security at all, and I'm looking like a target. So I walk out front, and this was my first time in Colombia. Now, since then, I've fallen in love with the people and just some amazing people, but I didn't know operational security. I'd never done anything like this, right? I've lived in this protected bubble for a long time. So I get out and this taxi driver, hey, come here. I'll take you. Where you want to go? I'm like, I just want to go to the Marriott, right? So we get in, this taxi driver who solicited me because he saw what I looked like, get in. Rule number 1, don't do that, right? And rule number 1, don't go dressed like a target. Rule number 2, don't get in a taxi where somebody's soliciting. So we take off and I said, take me to the Marriott. Well, he's driving and I see the Marriott. He drives past it.
What?
Okay. And then I thought maybe it's the next exit. He passes the next exit. I'm like, Marriott. He goes, oh, hotel. I'm like, no, the Marriott. Passes another exit, goes into this dark, seedy area of town, pulls over, and there's this building, this hotel type building, and there's drug dealers, there's prostitutes, there's a bunch of thugs that are sitting by this building, and I'm dressed like a target.
Oh my God.
And he's like, hotel. And I'm like, no, Marriott. He goes, hotel. I knew that it was a setup. For sure. I mean, this is my very first day in Colombia before the operation even started. And I'm thinking, maybe my business partner was right when he said, Paul, have you thought through this? This is really dangerous. And so I had no idea that it would be that dangerous. And I was frankly stupid. You don't go into a country like that, dressed like that by yourself, no security, whatever else. And so I'm like, crap, how am I going to get out of this? And he wasn't moving. And call it my own spidey senses, call it me not being that stupid, call it God. Every cell in my body was screaming, do not leave this car. Do not leave the car. And so I'm like, no, Marriott. He goes, no, hotel. And finally I thought, and I had donated some money to a bunch of different police departments. And I was made an honorary colonel because of me paying for the funerals of a bunch of fallen officers, right? So as an honorary colonel, they gave me a badge. Now,
Police badge.
Police badge. Now, I can't use it saying, oh, look at me, but I happen to have it just in case crap hit the fan. And I was digging through my bag. I'm like, oh, what is that? Sure enough, it was in there. I pull it out and I say to him, Policia, Marriott, ahora, police, Marriott, now, right? And he drives me to the Marriott and I'm like, okay, wow. Maybe that was dangerous. And, the next day we fly in. I do get to the airport okay. I'm dressed like I'm supposed to. I get picked up at the airport by 2 Navy SEALs who, these are big guys. They're my real security and my show security as well, because a guy like me would be coming in with his own security, right? And they put me in a bulletproof car with big, fat, thick windows. 200-pound doors. I'm thinking, okay, this probably feels safer than where I was in that taxi cab. But now I know the danger. And I realized, wow, I guess my only thing that's keeping me safe when I go see these traffickers is the fact that they believe that I'm their golden ticket, right? I'm going to fund their project. Otherwise, they would have put a lot of resources into taking me out.
For sure. So who are those guys, the Navy SEALs? Like, how are they kind of trained to go undercover? You are a newbie, so to speak, right? But is that all they do? Like, what's the process? The recruiting process, basically.
The guys on that mission, some of the best men I've ever worked with are the former Special Forces guys who served with us undercover. And I'm still close friends with a lot of them. They're good men and women. And the thing I love about them is that it is never about their face and their ego and their arrogance. They've put their life in danger many, many times to serve their country. And now most of them are retired. It's in most of the former FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, and Special Forces, these guys, many times they are already retired. And so they're not active anymore in the Special Forces, but they have all of those skills.
So do they volunteer? How do they get picked?
I'm not sure how the original ones got picked, other than the fact that I know that the Homeland Security agent already had connections in the field with guys who had been doing undercover work. There were guys that were previous detectives doing work working with the government, but now were retired and wanted to use their skills to go help rescue kids. In fact, many of these guys, their entire career as in FBI or CIA or even as a detective, a lot of these guys, their entire career was mostly desk work, paperwork, et cetera, and maybe one or two times they're out there in the field. So to be physically there on the ground for some of them was life-changing. But others, especially the Special Forces guys, those guys have been operators for a while. Now, the problem is those guys work really, really well as the security, but the traffickers have to know why there's security there. So there has to be a rich guy who justifiably would have security. Otherwise, they would think, well, why is that guy here? And I've had a few of those 70 undercover rescue missions. I've had a few times where I had a security guy with me who looked like security, who almost blew the mission. It's happened many, many times. At one point, the foundation that we were working with had an audition. They needed to bring on more undercover operators so that they could expand what they were doing. We had over 300 applicants. Those 300, they were already vetted in terms of former Special Forces, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, former detectives, etc. And we had a whole bunch of them that flew into town, that were going through this whole vetting process and limited it down finally to about 30 that were somewhat decent. Of those 30 that we went through a 2 and 3 week vetting process and doing undercover work, only 3 of them were deemed good enough in actually doing undercover.
For human trafficking?
For human trafficking, yeah.
Wow.
For going in and finding the kids.
I mean, you
because
think they're perfect for it.
they're not, they're good men and women, but they're trained to use their night vision goggles and having a sniper on the roof and having all of their gear. When you're undercover, you don't have a gun. You don't have a knife many times, right? You've got your bare hands and your ability to communicate. And a lot of them felt super uncomfortable not being able to carry weapons to protect themselves. That's number one. Number two, they were trained to be looking for snipers and stuff all over the place. They're not trained to convince a trafficker to introduce you to his boss and his boss's boss. That's a whole different mindset.
I could see that. So the 3 that made it, are these the 3 that you've been working with?
Oh, they've worked on a number of different operations. The guys that I've been working with a lot were some former Krav Maga guys and some other business owner guys that I'll go into details later. Now, I will say that the security guys worked really well as security guys undercover.
Right.
They didn't work really well as the buyers of the kids or the guys working for the buyer, but they worked really well as security. In fact, on that very first day on that operation, one of those Navy SEALs that picked me up at the airport, we were sitting there at the table and one of the traffickers leans forward and said, "Pablo, I have a gift for you." And he hands me his phone and there's a picture of a child, 11-year-old girl on his phone. And the Navy SEAL that was standing right behind me as my bodyguard, he's like, "I'm gonna go take a look around, make sure everything is all secure in the restaurant." And he goes and walks around the restaurant. Now, later when we were debriefing, he said, as I looked down at that picture of that child that the trafficker showed Paul, he said, she was about the same age and looked a lot like my daughter at home. He said, I almost unholstered my weapon and shot him right there. He said, I was gonna blow our cover if I stood any longer. I had to leave and walk around and just take a breather. But because if you just shoot him right there, then of course you lose all the other kids. You don't know where they are.
So being a Navy SEAL doesn't necessarily mean that you can really maneuver through these very...
Some of them could. Guys like Dave Lopez was a highly decorated Navy SEAL, one of the best undercover operators I've ever worked with. Now, he looks like a Navy SEAL, big, and so he worked better in a security role, or right now his organization is taking down pedophile rings. I think he took down 20 different pedophiles last month alone, which each one of them could have statistically abused somewhere between 10 and up to 100 children in their lifetime. So you take down 20 of those, you're between 200 and 2,000 children
Wow.
that you're rescuing before they're ever abused. So yeah, these guys are still doing some great work.
That's amazing. So I can imagine you will find yourself in very dangerous situations. And what Navy SEAL or otherwise, I mean, didn't you find yourself in like some dangerous situations where, oh my God, we're going to be in trouble?
Yeah, a lot. In fact, we were in Mexico City and we had identified some trafficking that was coming in from Tenancingo through Mexico City into Puerto Vallarta area. And so we went in and multiple times connecting with all these traffickers. And we had found 48 children and a whole bunch of traffickers. And it was about 4 days before the sting operation where we were getting all the traffickers to bring their children to the same place. And I called each one of the traffickers and I said, hey, this is when the party is. My boss is in town. By now, I'm not working as the wealthy guy. I'm working for a wealthy guy. So I'm going deep cover, connecting with all of these traffickers at this time. And there's one I couldn't get a hold of. His name was Scarface. He had this huge scar down his cheek. And he was selling 9, 10-year-old children. And we had to arrest him, but his phone was dead. So I told that we didn't trust any of the local cops because half the time they're on the payroll of the traffickers, and I don't know who to trust. And so we had flown in 2 federal officers from Mexico City that was there in the area, and they were helping us set up the sting. And I told them, stay here in the hotel. I'm going to go back out into the dark area. And I went out with 3 of my operators. One of them is named Joseph. I'll tell you about him in a minute. And Andy, Jimmy and myself. And Jimmy, he speaks fluent Spanish. He knows how to sell, and he has done 20 plus rescue missions with me now. Really good man. So we were out there, and I told the federal officers we're going to go find this guy, go out in the dark area. So we're out there in the dark area. I'm talking around and asking to have somebody come and does anybody know this guy? Well, I get this phone call from this taxi driver that knows Scarface. He says, meet me at the boardwalk. So we're waiting at the boardwalk, and all of a sudden, from all different directions, 10 police officers, full automatic weapons, on the ground. I'm like, now we're laying there on the ground. Now, at this point, we had been in, me and Andy and Jimmy and Joseph, all of these guys, we had been in multiple times. I would rather spend 3 days in a Mexican prison than to lose those 48 children. And so they're throwing us on the ground. They handcuff us really hard. I mean, my handcuff marks, I still have nerve damage right here if I touch it from coming up here. So they were super hard. And they pick us up and they put us in the back of a police pickup truck. And this is the one where they've got the benches on the side and the guy's holding the guns, and we're laying there on the bottom. And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to take us to the jail, and the federal officers at their hotel room, they're going to come and say, hey, this is a federal case, and they'll get us out. Well, they don't take us to the jail. They start taking us out of the city, like the desert. Like, this is where really bad things happen. Now, at this point, and this is my point in terms of who the operators are, I'm actually more scared for the police than I am for us. Joseph had had 2 or 3 tequilas at dinner that night, and he was a little bit tipsy.
Uh-oh.
Right? And so when they threw us on the ground, they handcuff us, he turns his head and he's like, I'm going to effing kill him. I'm like, oh, you can't kill them. We don't know if they're good cops or bad cops. They're bad cops. I know they are, right? And then when they put us in the back of the pickup truck and they're starting to take us out, he's getting madder by the minute. Me and Jimmy are like, Joseph, we're handcuffed. They've got guns to our head. Shut up. We're going to get killed, right? And so he's getting madder and madder. And we get out. Finally, they stop. And these guys are pulling us out of the truck. They've got their batons. They've got their guns on us. It's going to get ugly. And one of them says something about Scarface. He said, you asking about Scarface? He said, I arrested him myself for selling children. So that told me they were good cops.
Right.
Right? I'm like, I'm really happy you said that. Now I can tell you who we really are. I said, we have 2 federal officers at the hotel room. And Jimmy is translating for me, I'm telling him we got the 2 he says, Bull, you can go. And Joseph's like, it's going down. I said, Joseph, they're good cops, right? So finally, I tell him, listen, before anything happens, somebody has to get in here. And I had a pair of pants that had kind of a fold right here, kind of looked like it was a zipper for shorts, and inside was a hidden pocket. And I said, somebody needs to open that. I'm handcuffed right now, open that. And they did, and there's a card in there. It was signed by the head of the federal police that has my picture on it, that basically says that if they don't give me their guns and that they could go to jail. I mean, it's a great get out of jail free card. And they show it to the chief of police that's in the front. He comes out shaking. They all unhandcuff us faster than we were handcuffed. All 10 of them. Los Santos, we're so sorry, we're so sorry. I said, no, this is how you should treat people who are buying children in your country. I said, but I don't know who to trust. Don't say, if you guys say anything to anybody, entire department's under investigation. Yes, sir, we're so sorry. 4 days later, largest child rescue operation in Mexico history with 48 children.
Wow.
So that was a long story, but it talks about the operators having the ability to deal with things with your bare hands.
Right.
You know, was super important. We didn't have Navy SEALs, Green Berets. Now those guys do other missions and stuff as well, but it was guys that knew how to talk. It was Jimmy that knows how to speak fluent Spanish. I'm sitting here trying to tell him, and he's translating this whole thing. And we all must have been a little bit crazy, but because at the end of that, we're doing videos going, hey, let's do a selfie with these police officers. But they were doing their job. And what's good is that those traffickers are all in prison today.
That's so scary. That's like, what a life to go undercover and do all this. It's mind-blowing. These are the heroes.
Yeah, those guys are.
I mean, you are the hero. I think that's, for them and for yourself to put your life on the line like this, so close to death in such dangerous situations all the time. Did you ever lose an operator during a mission?
We have a rule that we always go 2 by 2, right? 2 or 3 of us together. You're never alone with a victim. You're never alone with a trafficker. You're never alone, because that's where things get dangerous, and we have to make sure that everybody has eyes on each other too, so nobody can say, oh, Paul did this thing, whatever else. No, we're always got that buddy system, always. Well, we were in Dominican Republic. I was going to tell it, guys, fix your system. We were there, and 2 things happened there. First of all, we had identified a whole bunch of traffickers, and we were building the relationships with them, and the federal police said, we need to have one of our operators with you. And we're like, okay, that's fine. Well, they sent one, and he was great. He did a great job. The problem is that all the traffickers, now that we've got a Dominican guy with us that looks like a police officer, smells like a police officer, these guys are like, that guy, he's a cop. Didn't you know he's a cop? Really? Yeah, we're gonna, and it shut down a lot of those. And we're like, crap, how are we gonna deal with that, right? And so we had to talk to him and say, listen, we want you close, but not close, right? You can be 20 feet away, you can be following us or whatever else, but if you're right there with us, you're gonna scare off the traffickers when we're talking to them and whatever else. And so we worked through some of that. Well, he couldn't go with us on one of these cities the next day. So we went into this new city, and we were asked to identify what kind of trafficking was going on there, just so that we could see if we needed to do another sting there as well as the first one we were in. So we're out. It's about 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. We purposely go into the most happening area of town where there's the drug dealers there and party things going on and whatever. And we're definitely looking at a place. There's 3 of us, me and Andy and Jimmy. And we're walking, and these cops keep coming up to us, these local cops. They say, hey, can we help you with something? We're like, no, we're good. Now, we don't want to tell the local cops what we're doing, because sometimes they're tied with the traffickers. Right. And so we just say, yeah, we're good. Well, we walked for almost 2 miles. It was a long ways for this whole thing from where our original car was. And we were tired, and it was all downhill. And so the way back was a big uphill battle. And so we're down there, and we're getting some tacos and stuff, and one of these cops comes, and 2 cops come, and they're on a motorcycle, 2 cops on a motorcycle, and they said, hey, can you guys need a ride back up? And we're like, yeah, that would be really nice to get a ride back up. That was a long walk down here. And so we violated rule number 1. And because we couldn't have more than 1 person on, there was a motorcycle with 2 cops on it already. So we decided, Andy said, you know what, let me jump on with these guys. I'll have these guys take me back up to the car. I'll bring the car down and pick you guys up. We're like, okay, yeah, that's good. That'll save us a long walk all the way up that hill. Well, so Andy gets on this motorcycle with these cops, and he's gone.
What happened?
And for a while, he's gone. Now, what happened was these cops started driving, and then they pulled over into a place where there was nobody there. And they said, hey, we need you to go with us to an ATM, pull some money out.
Oh my God.
He said, I don't have any cards on me. I'm sorry. In fact, if you want some money, go down there. Pablo, he's got some money, my friend. He wanted to figure out how to get back with us. And they said, well, you can give us your phone right now. He pretended like he didn't know that they were trying to shake him down. Instead, he said, you know what? Listen, I can buy you a phone. I can get you all of that stuff, but my money's down with the guys. And so why don't you take me to the car, and then you can follow me back down there, and we can get it all taken care of. So they take him to the car and follow him back down. We're sitting there waiting a lot longer than we thought it would be. And all of a sudden we see the car coming, and there's Andy, and he's white as a ghost. And the motorcycle cops are right behind him. Now, rule number 1 is back into effect. We don't have anybody alone.
How long was he gone?
It was more than an hour. He was gone, wasn't answering his phone, all of this stuff. For all we knew, Andy would have been dead at the time. We didn't know. We couldn't get a hold of him. We didn't know how far away he was. He was just gone. And so finally he comes back. He's white as a ghost. And Andy's a big guy. And I've seen him face to face with some really bad traffickers over the time. But this was the first time that Andy was alone and with some dirty cops that shook him down. Now,
With guns.
With guns.
Right.
Worst case scenario, I guess worst case scenario, he wouldn't have made it back. He would have been gone. And so these cops shook him down. Now, Andy's a big guy, but 2 cops with weapons. Now,
And in the middle of nowhere,
in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Now, Andy wasn't just your average Joe. Back up years before, Andy had heard about some of the rescue missions I was doing, and he came into my office. He was a wealthy, well-spoken businessman, just like me. And he came in and he said, Paul, hey, I've heard about what you're doing with this child rescue stuff, and I really want to help. I said, that's awesome. Would love your help. Would be super, super grateful. He said, how much does it cost to finance an entire rescue mission? What's the average cost? And I said, well, the average cost is about $25,000. Picking up somewhere between 10 and 15 children. It's about $2,000 a child, but it's about $25,000 is the minimum to go in and do a sting operation. He takes out his checkbook and he writes a check for $25,000 and he hands it to me. He said, okay, I want to go on the rescue mission with you. I pushed the check back. I said, bro, you can't just buy your way on a rescue mission. This is really dangerous, right? You have no idea how bad it gets there. You can't just buy your way on there. That doesn't work that way. And he pushes the check back. He said, you keep the money for the foundation. He said, and you tell me exactly what I need to do to train. I don't care if it takes me 5 years of training, whatever it is, you tell me what I need to do to be able to go on one of those missions. I said, have you had any training at all? And he said, I've had some hand-to-hand combat training. I've done an escape and evasion training. I didn't realize how much he had done. He had actually done lots of courses on everything from lock picking to breaking out of handcuffs to, escape and evasion, kidnapping stuff, whatever. So he was kind of like me and all of this stuff that he had trained for so long. And I said, well, here's the thing. Most of your gun training isn't going to work here. Most of your kidnapping training may or may not work. But what you do need to know is how to be able to handle any situation with your bare hands. And I said, have you ever trained in Krav Maga? And he said, well, no, I haven't. I said, well, here's Joseph's phone number. You call him, you start training with him. And if in a couple years, Joseph calls me and says, you're ready, I'll take you.
Takes a couple of years.
3 months later,
Oh, wow.
Joseph calls me and he said, Paul, Andy has been here every single day at the gym for hours every single day. He hits like a freight train. He's probably safer than most of your special forces guys that you have out with you. I think it'd be a good idea for you to take him. So I took Andy on a rescue mission, and since that time, besides Joseph, Andy has done more undercover work with me than any other operator.
So these guys aren't just about training. I mean, there's something in them, just like yourself, by the way, that compels them. This is a mission I have to do.
Yeah.
Isn't that what has a lot to do with how they become rescuers, right?
Me and Andy have had a lot of conversations on this very subject.
Yeah.
Both of us at the time were really looking for meaning in our life. He calls the child rescue work his new religion, right? His new connection with God, his new purpose in life. And some of the other operators as well. We were in unhealthy marriages. We didn't. My wife now, she said, Paul, I've been thinking about it. I think that there was something in you that really didn't care whether you lived or died at the time. Because the things that you were doing in being in those situations, you guys really didn't. It was so worth it to rescue the kids, and you had so little that was of real meaning at home.
That's what I mean. Like it's you when you sense that it's about the meaning of your entire life. You just do it no matter what. That's amazing.
It was almost a God calling
Right.
for all of us, and feeling like this was our purpose and this would fulfill everything else in our life, our family, our business. It would make everything make sense by using all of those resources we had to be able to rescue the kids.
And I bet that's the same force that protects you.
Oh, for sure.
I have a sense that you're so dedicated, you're so focused on what you're here to do because it is your higher purpose, that kind of creates, I feel, like sort of a shield around you that gets you through the worst situations. That's how it seems to me. You're constantly dealing with fear, I guess, but you're playing this role, you have this persona, you can't afford to be afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, talk to me about how do you process, this fear, trying to stay in this disguise and at the same time fight these emotions.
I'll answer it with the story that I think kind of sums up why myself and Jimmy and Andy and Joseph and David were so good in this space. I remember one time where I was brought in with some new operators. These guys were they're tattooed up, big guys, earrings, these guys, they're security guys. And they had been in this area for about 5 days and nobody had found any traffickers. And so one of the federal agents that was there, he said, Paul, can you go out with them? I knew that meant I'd get no sleep that night. We were leaving about 6 a.m. the next morning, and it was about 2 in the morning. We haven't found any connections. And I said, guys, can I take lead? Are you good with that? They're like, yeah. They say you're good at this. I'm gonna see what you do. I said, okay, you need to follow exactly what I say. Because I've done this a lot. By this time I had led or been a part of over 30, 35 undercover missions. So I had, and every time, I was able to find the kids. And I said, guys, you need to follow exactly what I said. I said, first things first, I need you to understand that I believe in God. I said, most people believe in a supreme being. They call him by different names. There's a higher power that is watching over us, cares more about these children than you and I ever could, and knows exactly where they are. So if you're okay with it, even if you're not okay with it, I'm going to start out by asking for some help. So here we are, downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the darkest, most voodoo-infested place in the Western Hemisphere. At 2 a.m., we take off our hats and offer up a prayer. I said, now I need you to understand how I see fear and faith. I said, this is not a religious conversation. This is a universal law. Okay? I said, most people think that faith is going to church and asking God to fix things in their life that they don't even believe are going to be fixed. That's not faith. That's actually a form of fear if you don't believe it's going to be fixed. I said, faith is it's a principle of power. It's one of the most powerful, next to unconditional love, it is the most powerful law in the universe. And it's simply this. It's the unwavering conviction that what I want to have happen will happen. The problem is that most people have a hard time with unwavering faith about anything. Should I marry this woman? Should I start this new job? Should I move to this new city? And they have a hard time with it because they don't know if what they want's in line with what their God wants for them in their life. And it's this confusing, oh, I don't know. For me, in that situation, because of the fact that it doesn't matter to me whether you think that God is a mountain or a tree or a cloud or a universe, or you call him this or you call her that, it doesn't matter. There is not a good, righteous creator of life in the universe that's okay with an 8-year-old being raped, period. So it's easy for me to have unwavering conviction that I can find those children. It's also important to understand that fear and faith cannot exist in the same person at the same time on the same subject. It just can't happen. The reason behind it is that in a way, they're the same power. So people who believe that bad things will happen to them, fear, actually attract that into their lives. People who believe that good things happen, faith, actually attract that into their lives. And it's more than the law of attraction. It's actually the law of creation. Understand that every action, every word, even every thought creates a world of abundance or a world of scarcity, a world of happiness or a world of pain, a world of slavery or a world of freedom. All of these things are being created by our collective consciousness and by the people that are operating in these different realms. And so in that space, by having unwavering faith and unconditional love for these children, I felt completely protected in these missions.
You know, as you're talking, I kind of see the energy. And it's interesting because when you have this strong faith, you start to align with your higher purpose, right? And when it becomes so unwavering, it's almost like you know you're going to succeed. So you already are putting that information or that thought out there, but also I feel like you start to align with the universe, and the universe is based on love. Yes. The universe is here to thrive. The universe does not self-destruct. The universe does not know hatred or evil or darkness. And so I feel like when you are in this strong alignment, it's almost like the universe is start to work through you. Yes. You know? Yes. And then that kind of propels you, it guides you to perhaps to finding the right person, the right, where the child is. And it's like that higher guidance system comes through.
Absolutely.
So because of that, I really feel you stay protected. So I get it. And it's brilliant. And it's very touching. And I feel like it's an honor, you know, to be and become that person. So I'm so appreciative of what you're doing and all those guys. It's pretty incredible.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have served in that capacity. Not just because of the lives of the children and getting them back to their families and in a safe place, but because of its ability to help me identify my life's mission and to help me tune in to the ability to harness the power of unwavering faith and unconditional love.
And at the end of the day, that is really our purpose. We are here to hold this unconditional love for ourselves and for others. I mean, that should be the force that drives us here in this human condition. Yeah. So That's just so beautiful. And I'm so grateful.
That's the secret behind finding the children, is learning to listen. I have a book that'll be coming out probably next year now. I'm working on a couple others, but it's called Are You Listening? And it talks about not only in being led in these missions, but how if we quiet our mind, in fact, I should co-write some of it with you, because this is your forte, is in learning how to quiet everything and tune in to that connection with your higher self, that connection with Source, with God, that connection with the universe, and be a co-creator with the universe in this process of healing and expansion and growth.
Yeah, I mean, when you are basically channeling, bringing through that energy through you, Source, unconditional love, I feel you have to succeed.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy of life.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very beautiful. I'm very grateful for you.
As I am for you and your amazing work in helping people to shed their trauma and to recognize who they really are.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Wow, listening to these stories make me feel so humbled and touched by the human spirit. The number of people who actually risk their lives and go undercover to rescue these children is really very touching. But at the same time, it gives me hope. I feel that we need them to continue this work. And so I encourage you to support them as much as you can and to keep pouring this positive and hopeful energy in the world so that we can move forward on our human evolution. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you'll join me again next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Subscribe.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. There's so much more I'd like to dive into, but unfortunately, we can't do that here thanks to the heavy censorship efforts from big tech. If you want to explore this topic further, you can dive deep by accessing our entire uncensored library on unified.tv. There's a link in the description below this video if you want to check it out. A membership to Unified TV gives you unlimited access to hundreds of uncensored podcasts, investigative journalism, documentaries, films, and content that was once available on major streaming platforms like Netflix, but is now banned from the internet. For just $14.99 a month, which is less than $1 a day, you get access to it all. Your subscription also helps keep the platform running free from censorship and corporate influence. Please consider supporting us and enjoy all of our unfiltered and thought-provoking content in return. Thank you very much, and I will see you on Unified TV.